penumpang dari Wonomulyo sudah mulai tiba di BGJ 8. Binatang daripada manusia.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on this fast-forward planet. This is Andy Revkin, Columbia Climate School, Sustain What webcast. You, like me, you might have seen this video on LinkedIn or elsewhere about 5 days ago. It popped up, and I've spent time in developing countries and in waste-filled areas here in North America as well. And this really jarred me, even having seen a lot of situations where you have waste, in this case, a lot of plastic, of course, flowing through a landscape that shouldn't be there. And I tracked down Tom Jackson, who shot the video, who's in Indonesia, and who has an initiative, a company that's trying to reverse the flow, in essence. Tom, thank you for joining Sustain What. You know, it's 8 p.m. your time, 8 a.m. my time. I have a relic from my journeys in Indonesia behind me. I spent time in 1979. Wow. I was there in 1979 in Bali and Lombok and a couple of small islands on a sailboat. And even then, when we were sailing through the strait between Australia and New Guinea, you could see in that case, at that time, 1979, the waste was mostly fishing gear. I have a picture, maybe I'll show it in a little while. But so just tell us a little bit, first of all, what was going on there? I'm going to play it again, and then we'll get to what you're trying to do about it.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on, Andy. So yeah, what you see here is West Sulawesi, which is East Indonesia, but sort of north of where I am. And it's a remote part of Indonesia. So when you talk about plastic buildup, this is irrigation. This is essentially, when the rainy season is finished, they need to then get an influx of water from freshwater sources. And as you can imagine, the buildup of material over the 6 months of when they didn't need it was exactly what happened here when they opened it. So it was, for me, this is, you usually see some of the side of the rivers like this, not the ball of plastic surge. So yeah, it does become a common sight, but I mean, it's great that so many people got to see this video because there is a lot of plastic material of value in there. So the reason that it's happening is it does shock a lot of people, not only because environmentally it's everything that every reason why you separate your material in your bins to avoid something like this, which of course they don't have house collection or anything else like that here. So yeah, this is a really good sort of education around how it fails and where it goes wrong. And in 2023, this is still a thing, and it was great. People do ask me actually, like, is ocean plastic that bad in Indonesia and Southeast Asia? And that's kind of why I put it as the tagline, because it very much is, and you get used to it. It's either in the water flow or it's either being burnt. So it does become normal to see things like that here, which I'm sure shocks a lot of people.
Yeah, it reminds me of around 13 years ago, before I had ever been to Nairobi, a friend of mine, a conservation scientist, Sanjin, who went on to head Conservation International, he was in Nairobi, and he sent me a video. This is kind of before Twitter was a big deal and stuff. And the video was of this river that was foaming. Let me see if I can.
It's a river that's overspilled its banks in last night's rain, and then taken out some kind of chemical company, but no river should be doing that.
And and what it led me to think, because been reporting for decades now on environmental issues, and I lived along the Hudson River for the last 33 years of my life, and the history of the Hudson was pretty much similar to what you see now in Indonesia. There was a plastic factory that made tape in the 1950s and 1960s, cellophane, sticky tape, and the river shores were coated with the adhesive. There was down another creek going into the Hudson River where they were dyeing fabric. The river changed colors day to day depending on what fabric they were dyeing. And I think a lot of what we think about now is, can we leapfrog? Does every country have a developmental path through which this kind of phenomenon, whether it's masses of plastic waste or where we're just so stuck on the thing of the day, production, grow the economy, not thinking. So is this, do you get, obviously, I think, where are you from, Australia or New Zealand? Or
I'm from the UK originally, and I've been out here 2 and a bit years now.
So do you have a sense, I would love to think we can leapfrog. So what when you see this, does it feel like, what does it feel like initially, and how do you work with local folks to try to change things?
It especially coming from a Western country that has great sort of council or government collection schemes. This is going back 50 years at least, so it is very difficult, especially when you come from a place where it can be better. It's just getting through the loops to get there. Essentially, Honest Ocean, what we do is we do remote collections, and we try and centralize it. So, for instance, with the government, instead of moaning about the problem and proposing ideas and all this thing, which a lot of people have tried here in the past and hasn't worked, really what we do is we create the infrastructure. So, for instance, at the moment, we're just building like a baling, a shredding, and a wash line up in Mataram, which is the capital city of where I am on the island just east of Bali, which to get material back here, it's got to be trucked and on a ferry. So you have to make it financially viable to be able to do that and sell material into the mainland, which is Java, where all the manufacturing recycling plants are. So you can't do that unless you have a business model that actually is sustainable over time. It's not an NGO way of doing it with a budget until the budget runs out. It's about being able to have the sales, being able to have the collection and the processing. It allows us to go quite remote parts of the world. That's really what we do. We micromanage all of the waste streams because it's really important that every link of the chain is accounted for. And especially in countries like this where they don't have massive amounts of education or have seen it like you and I have from other sides of the world, this is just the way it's been for at least 50 years, and it's burnt. Plastic's either burnt on this, you see 200 fires a night if you're driving 500 meters on your bike. It's just all along the side of the road. So it's that or in the environment. And if there's any material, any landfill that charges like a tipping fee, which is just when the truck offloads, then they're not going to pay that because these businesses and people are surviving day to day. It's not like us where you can plan years, or these guys really are very poor communities. It's day to day. So they will, if someone's paying them to collect it from a hotel, is it free to put it by the side of the river? Yeah. So it does happen a lot. And it's about creating the drop-off zones. That's the focus. You can't moan about it without creating a solution. And essentially, that's what we do with the government. And our plan is to do it at scale. And we've got a good network of waste banks all across East Indonesia at the moment, where most of the islands, the remote ones, are here.
So how did you get started? It's you and your brother and others. I'm just going to show folks a map from another group, the Ocean Cleanup. Put this in the context. Indonesia has, I think, 16,000 islands, right? And
I love that.
Dozens of languages, and so here you are coming from the UK. How did you end up there? And then how do you start? For anyone else who wants to think about diving into a situation like this? How did that work?
Yeah, and the answer is head first. So before this, I worked on private and also a few commercial super yachts, where I spent a lot of time in the South Pacific and crossing Atlantic and Pacific as well. And I really saw from 2011 right through to 2018, it really got bad. And then from there, I kind of started the journey onward, and I looked at the worst locations versus infrastructure versus manufacturers. I spent 18 months of research, pretty much, from the UK, and then it was during COVID, and enough was enough. I got on an aeroplane, went to Java, Jakarta area, and then I spent four months visiting 34 different recycling plants, pretty much all of them. And I went to fishing villages, a lot of sign language, not much Javanese or any other languages here, which there are many of. So yeah, that's what I did, and we created a contract where we said, if we come back, will you sell us the material? We'll come and pick it up. And my goal was to take it out of the ocean. That was really it. But the more I went down the rabbit hole, it was, well, no, actually, we got to stop it on land first.
Right.
And yeah, exactly what you see here. That is mismanagement of material. And if you don't stop that on the land, that it will come through the river estuaries. So yeah, we now focus on communities, coastal communities, and getting all of the material back into the market, whether it's low values. A lot of it has saltwater contamination or sunlight, been in the environment for a long time.
Right.
Like we find many packets that are from 87, those kind of years. And the biggest problem actually here is your chip packets, your crisp packets, which are aluminium in the inside, and usually a PET vinyl wrapper on the outside.
Right.
And those can't be separated. So everyone has a big problem with plastic bottles, which of course there is, but at least the energy recycling around that is low compared to all these materials that can't be recycled. So there has to be solutions for everything, and there are a few people doing some good stuff here, but it's not enough, as you can see on the video. And it's hard. No one's, some of the islands we've been to, no one's even seen where there's no Wi-Fi, pictures of garbage collection trucks. They've never seen that kind of thing. So you have to make it scalable and affordable. That's the only way it works.
Is there a franchise model for it, or how does this work at the village scale? How can you get? One thing I'm thinking about is there was a project called digitalgreen.org that I wrote about more than a decade ago, which uses simple video technology for Indian farmers to convey to other Indian farmers in local languages, a new planting method, or I use the fertilizer this way. And so it's a way to spread innovation.
Oh, and share. Great.
From practitioner to practitioner, as opposed to someone like me or you. And I don't know whether there's a way to use social media or the like to sort of build community, build a sense that, hey, you can do this too. Is that something that can be tried or has been tried?
Yeah, this is the bit I get really excited about, and I call it just micro business format. So essentially, we will go into a community, we will speak to the chiefs of the community. 9 times out of 10, they're very receptive to us because they want their villages and the township to be cleaner, and the government have just forgotten about them because they're miles away from the mainland. So what we'll do is we'll go and find usually the leaders, speak to people that have good impact within the village, and we will say to you, if you guys put this plastic and separate it here and put it in this space or under this roof, every 3 weeks we will send a truck and we will pay you for the worth of material in that truck. And so accidentally and inadvertently, we sort of become a logistics company for having partnership deals with the recycling companies, but then also create hubs of micro businesses, which are just mum and pop shops. They within the community. A lot of people trust them, and then we'll bring the material. They get paid fairly, and then we will pay them usually fairly soon. And it's very difficult here to do business, especially as a foreigner or as a boule, they call it here. So it's kind of one step 34 backwards. But over the last 2 years, we've really started to pick up pace. We pretty much the whole team, except for my co-founder Angus, who's based in the UK, we're all here. We all understand it. We live and breathe it, literally the fumes, every day. So we can very quickly pivot around coastal communities, collections. Unfortunately, there's problems with families sometimes. There has deaths. There's all this terrible stuff that closes waste banks, and we try and support them where we can. And we're at the stage now where we're growing that, and then we can start to sort of lease them things like shredding machines, which we can fit more plastic per truck, reduces carbon. That's the bit of scale which really works, and we use technology for that. We use sort of platform base for everyone to be able to use and integrate on pretty much across Indonesia, where when the material is ready, we will send a collection. So, third party, any single person in that village or that community can start collecting, and they can drop it off. And those points will be showed on the phone where they can drop that off. And that's the only way we understand that this can work at scale. It's not about us. We are just literally the cog to allow the connection from the recycler to the from the coast to the recycler, and then on from there back into the recycling market. And like I said, micromanagement of that here is crucial.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the business model in a minute, and this idea of the where's the demand of the clothing and other products. But let's, if you're okay with that, let me show the video you have on the website, just so people can. I think it's a good summary. Hold on one second. And thanks again for doing this.
Not at all. I love it. These are mangrove forests. The last line of defense before it goes out.
Can you hear the sound? So right there, that gives you a sense of a critical part of the process. After the stuff's been collected, turning it into something that can then go into use.
That's it. And if you leave it there for a second, Andy, so all of this material, everyone talks about energy effective way of drying things. This is laid out on massive mats, and that's just sun drying over 3 days, or a little bit less depending on the density weight. But yeah, that's the way it's worked here for years. So it's not about changing that. And right on the far left of that, you can see all of the byproduct material right on the top left-hand corner where those bags are. That is a burn pit, which we're trying to get them to step away from. And that is multi-layer plastic, which is your labels on products that there is no market for. So the really important part of recycling is to take everything out of the environment, not the plastic of value. So, us overpaying for plastic to take that collection of multi-layers is something, that we do, and we're really trying to solve, either chemical recycling or something like that for here. But power cuts, energy, it's a real problem here still. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg with doing, recycling all this great material, but there is still so much waste that comes through it. So yeah, solutions needed for everything.
Are there is there any integration or possible integration with energy generation? There can be super low emission incineration, like Scandinavia, one of the greenest places in the world, has lots of incineration. I assume it's very high technology. I don't know if there's something at the village scale that can be used to generate either heat or even power, but I don't know if that's feasible.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken to a few people about this, and the X amount of millions it costs to do it. It definitely needs to come from a government entity or a grant basis, which we, are very much pursuing. But it's really hard here. You've got corruption, you've got all sorts of things all the way through the governmental structure. So, you can't own land here; you can lease it. So,
Right.
There has been situations of people putting in fancy equipment, and then, after a while they go, "Oh, that's great, that's ours," and then they don't maintain it or have the personnel here, the engineering team, which they've got a lot of, but really depends. I mean, you've got like the Nestle's and things which are doing things here, but it's really that suits them and their material. So it's collaborations. This has to be so many people coming together to solve all these things. It's not about brand ego. It's not about manufacturers blaming waste management for not dealing with it, and not waste management blaming manufacturers for not spending the R&D money on creating more recyclable material, which we're only just getting into the testing phase for Western companies, which is crazy when you think about it in this day and age. But it's baby steps, but there is, solar panels aren't even really a thing here, and it's ridiculous because of the amount of sun and heat generation you get here generally. And I think the last time I looked, there was a 17% import on solar panels because they're not manufactured here. They come from, I think, Taiwan or China. So not many things make sense here, and it's really about working with a system and trying to change it. But you can't go overnight on this. The people in their homes don't understand that you can put different products in different bins, and those need to stay separated all the way back to the recycler, and there's no incentive for them to do that, whereas we do it because we know it's the right thing to do, right? Whereas they're going to separate it, and so the financial model has to be that if we collect your material, if you drop it off, you will get a small amount of money for that. And they want salaries like us, and that's what we do. We give them money. We don't give them cooking oil. We don't give them rice, anything like that, because at the end of the day, it's up to them what they spend that on. And that's really important to be able to grow a network. And we've had many back steps from learning about offering people micro businesses and leasing structures and machinery, and the motivation has to be there as micro businesses off their own back, empowering their community, right. Us creating a sales channel for them.
It's so interesting. Yeah, that sustained engagement, learning and adjusting, getting really familiar with the ecosystem of business and governance, and even down to the village scale. That's a tough task. If you could go back in time to when you were in school or the like, what would young people today, whether they're in Indonesia or in the United States or the UK, what could they study, or what should they be thinking about as they, if they look at these grand challenges like getting plastic out of the ocean or looking at climate change, what's the skill set that might not be obvious?
Yeah, that's interesting. There's such a mix of it as well that I think there are so many variations that people could study. If you look at engineering, for example, if you had a skill set like that and came to a place like this, or even wherever you did it from, you can re-engineer the process of how it works, and you can essentially look at machinery and small, tiny little machines that you can give to, for instance, in this situation, to villages, which are just basic cog chain machines that recycle plastic. Communications, being someone who can bring other communities and countries together around this is really important. yeah, I think there's a whole network of it. The opposite of marketing, anything else other than that, because that's where greenwashing comes from.
Right.
But yeah, it's really it's it's a hard one. I would say entrepreneurial, but can't really study that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Without doing
communicate.
it. It,
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
sou- it sounds like, a good education would be to be out in the world, uh, working at a recycling center, or whether it's in rural North America or Europe, or in Asia, getting to understand the flows of things, whether it's energy or waste, feels like a good start. As a journalist, I've been kind of lucky to be able to poke around and see these systems and write about them. But somehow, the more we have programs that can expose young people to possibilities, and as distinct from exposing them to climate doom or the like, it feels like it's a part of the process.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And these new generations are born into a world where it's problems everywhere, very few solutions, which is
Mhm.
great because now we're seeing the next generation of people wanting to really impact, and that's also why they're not staying long at corporate jobs, because they're not um, they're not having their voice heard. So you create a next generation of angry people which use that fuel for hopefully for better, and
Yeah.
there's technology which these guys are going to understand way better than we ever will in our lifetime, and quicker, and they will adapt it quicker. So with a smartphone, these guys can come up with solutions for this, and it's about the connection between new age meeting old government sort of society basis, where you see startups and these university guys and people out of their garage just starting stuff, not asking
Right.
for permission. There's a guy here actually who's 17 who has started creating energy from fast flowing stream by his house. I'll try and get some video content for you, Andy.
Yeah.
And he's also stopping plastic at the same time. And what he uses is half a steel oil drum with basically, I guess you would call it a fan from a car, so to cool the engine down. And he uses that to spin it up, and he links that essentially in a very basic format to a battery, and then he will then plug it into an adapter and then his phone, and
Wow.
it's amazing. And this guy learned from YouTube. These guys, I've been to the most remote places of Indonesia, or some of. All of these guys have got smartphones. They might not have very stable walls on their house, but smartphones, and this guy, I think he's got a YouTube channel now. I'll try and find it, but
Oh,
yeah,
I'd love to.
that's how he's learning. He doesn't go to school because there's no school within 50
Yeah.
miles of where he lives. So yeah, it's really interesting future, and we need to solve it quickly, and technology and guys who can adapt with it, and is the only way it's going
So
to
that
reverse this.
so that gets back to my first question, which was about leapfrogging. It sounds like that path, the capacity for insights and innovation to occur, this sort of mesh of technology and communication, access to information, and even at the village scale, in a remote area, a young bright mind can start to do really interesting things.
Yeah, and it's our sort of process of early trying to solve this, which they're not going to have to deal with because we're doing that now. So it's almost 2.0 for, let's say, 10 years time, when other solutions are there, hopefully sooner than that, 5 years. But the mistakes are all being made or have been made. So it's not having a repeat process for that. I think that's the economies of scale in terms of solutions for younger generations.
So I wanted to ask about the plastic pollution treaty, which is being negotiated. It's one of the first times I've seen industry. Like, I was looking at Greenpeace's talking points and some of the industry's talking points, and there's a lot of overlap on this one. It's like, it feels like industry is serious about getting at this, at least to a certain extent. Obviously, there's no single definition of industry, in China, Asia, Coca-Cola, whatever. But is there something in that process that could help feed the dynamics you see you need on the ground?
Yeah.
And if not,
hopefully
then that's an issue. Then ideally, if there's going to be some big top-down thing, you would want it to also have stimulus to get at the root of these problems.
Right, and that's really, the agenda of how that does work. I mean, it's great with saying it, and of course we've all heard it before, and this does seem like a big step, but how far down the chain will that go?
Right.
It's like a successful business, right? If it's making money, it's way easier to someone piggyback that and go, yeah, why wouldn't I get involved with this? So that's basic business. But what we've got here is we've got a slow moving agenda which has got pressure. So we see, things coming up, and I don't read too much of this anymore, because it's just, it's fueling hope, and then everyone goes quiet for a little bit, and no one's checking on actually what goals were met. And we see the government really pushing us now. Last 25 years has been cover up, from what I can find out. Now it's okay, we need to change it, which helps us a lot, and everyone else here trying to do that. So I have hope as always, but I'm probably not get bogged down with what, they've got angry consumers. Great, let's try and solve it. And there's a lot of people trying to do great stuff there, but does it actually knock on the door of the people who have the real say on things? And it always comes back to big business. If you can make a way to generate and scale ocean plastic, it would have been done 15 years ago.
Right.
And it's a manual. In this sense, it's a manual job. So we've got technology. You can put all the technology into it. People want to start, green social unicorn businesses and sell it in 8 months. Yeah, great. But plastic retrieval will always be manual because it's in the environment, it's in mud, it's in trees, it's in all sorts of things. And, that's why people will offer millions of dollars in investment for a machine. And we see it all the time, but the feasibility study was not done accurately. And they actually worked out no one wanted to collect plastic because they don't have the mindset of, oh yeah, greener planet, awesome.
Right.
And it's a really hard job. Like the working conditions, even in the landfill, these guys, some of them don't wear shoes, and it's been raining for 3 days, and the trucks can't even get the hills. So there are so many more issues around social and environmental problems in each location. Southeast Asia, generally, Thailand is a little bit cleaner, but still bad. The Philippines, nightmare. So, but it hasn't been solved because it's really, really hard, and it requires a lot of money, and it requires a lot of people with the same mindset. And yeah, that's why I'm a little bit reserved about that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, me too. I think I wrote about the climate treaty since before there was a climate treaty in 1988, and I think the world has still is stuck in a model where there'll be some big top-down solution to these problems because they're global, but they're really distributed. What you need is distributed capacity, distributed awareness, distributed motivation, distributed, income generation. And that's a very different model than waiting for a bunch of people to applaud in some conference room.
Yeah. And also on top of that, it's, that government position for that person, or, top down, might be in a few years. They get a good reputation, they go further up the ladder. So it's hard to get consistency from, having treaties and all sorts like that. But yeah, I am hopeful, but it really has to come from very aggressive people that really are driven to make change and to, again, micromanage where all of that funding goes. Because if you look at the awesome stuff that Ocean Cleanup do, that's fantastic, right? But if we had $7 million a month, we would stop every river in Southeast Asia with material going out of it. We wouldn't collect it from the middle of the ocean. So I think the way that companies are doing it and getting to the source instead of the stuff that looks pretty, I just think it's completely upside down at the moment. But only from going down this route have I learned that yeah, it all starts on land. Ocean plastic's a sexy word to put on products. You know, land or coastal plastic, which is what we call it, is not so much. So yeah, it's a difficult space.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Kashish Dasreshta, who it's a hard name to pronounce, who works in Nepal. He was covering, writing about getting at the ocean plastics through work in Nepal. Again, the rivers make Nepal part of the global hydrological system in a big way, and so Kathmandu is a source, just as you're describing here, and that flipping that narrative seems really important to me. My wife used to teach teachers how to teach systems thinking, how to start with, look at the whole system. So the more of that, the better too. I want to get back a little bit more to you. And is it your brother who founded this?
School friend, Angus. Yeah.
Girlfriend. Okay. So how do you keep at it? How do you, are you making a living, or, how does that work?
Yeah. So it was almost 2 years of not, and some pretty empty pockets from Angus and myself. And then we got into some really exciting partnerships with people in big corporates, but have been given, freelance to really make some change.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see the PCR market starting with legislation to explode.
So what's PCR?
Sorry. PCR is post-consumer recycling. Yeah. And yeah, as you can see, the QR code there as how we track it all. So what we do now is we partner with brands that really want to make a difference, and we prove to everyone through a QR code tracking of where it's come from, the social and environmental impact, and we do that to make sure that the consumer, for instance, sees a product on a shelf, two products very similar, giving that brand edge, a QR code where a consumer can scan it who's passionate about this,
right?
Or buying a gift for someone who is passionate about this, before they've even purchased it, can scan and see, by this purchase, it has given 6 people in a village, work for 2 weeks or a month, right. And that green consumer power is so important to us as a small startup, because from beginning to end, this is the first time in a supply chain we actually see full traceability, and we bring in the brands as part of that traceability, as well as the collection, the recycling, the export, whatever happens to that material, and that's what we do. And through this learning of being here, we've understood that it is easy to do this, and people are willing to get involved in it. Brands are willing to get involved in it. It's just finding each other without $1 trillion marketing budget, right? So we now have a great source of business, which allows us to grow across Southeast Asia. And the bit I didn't quite mention about, we've got all the collection and the recyclers, but essentially we create a network hub of recyclers. So we solve 2 problems. We give coastal plastics a home back to recyclers, but then recyclers also have consistent feedstock, which is just the raw material from the village to that. And those are the 2 pain points. So a recycler's biggest worry is running out of material to process and sell. And the villagers don't like being surrounded by plastic, but if someone doesn't offer them a solution, they're not going to change, because these guys are living on day to day. So it's really important for us to find powerful partnerships, and we have had brands who have just wanted videos from it, or customers like that, and t-shirts on certain individuals to make it look better, and that's not something we do. So it's a very big divide between that, and it's very important to know the value of what culture you're creating, not only for yourself, but examples of other people, how to do it, and how not customers should approach a new trending topic, to get a USP in a brand.
That's so interesting. There's some really good questions that came in, and thank you for your time too. I want to show you one other thing here. Let's see, share this instead. Yeah, I wrote this story when I was still at the New York Times in 2016. This was after the Volkswagen had its big fraud exposed. And the question I pursued was, with imposed transparency and concerned millennials, a boom in corporate responsibility, question mark. And I think your kind of your work is concretizing that. Volkswagen's duplicity was revealed by a nonprofit entity that was testing cars for other reasons, and they found this fraud. And the question is, how do we maximize both the pressure on bad players and the sort of the reward factor for those who are changing? So it's good to see the model you're describing here.
It's really important, Andy. And time will always show the real people doing it. People trying to take shortcuts. There's, in order to audit and get a proper supply chain, it is not the quick fix that big companies and even medium-sized businesses want results from. And it requires a lot of manpower and energy to get it right and to trace. You can't now just speak to your manufacturer and say, is this plastic recyclable? Like, what's the source? And someone says, yeah, sure. That can't be the end of that person internally in the business's job. They have to go and see that. And, the reputation of the business, is on the shoulders of sustainability managers and directors and raw material purchasers, all of this kind of stuff. And we see it, we see it in the print that people are always being exposed for it. And and rightly they should. And it just makes everyone more accountable. 5 years time, we're going to be in a much better place. But right now, do consumers get to see everything that they should? No. And if they're not showing you, like I keep seeing on, let's say, LinkedIn, ocean plastic, credit card coming out. Oh, great. That's awesome. Show us how you did it. Show us the traceability, but there's nothing. There's a banner photo saying we've got ocean plastic in it. And is it the people that are telling you where it came from, that it's come from the ocean? Taking plastic out of the ocean is a very hard job, and you don't get much plastic from collecting it because it floats or sinks. Right. So, people aren't stupid. It doesn't take long to dig stuff out. But it's the green space is a financial boom, and there is a lot of money to be made in this space. So of course people are doing things around it. But I think traceability is the only way that not only brands but also consumers can really understand why buying this product from this company or this brand is important to them, and why that resonates with their where their dollar or euro or pound is spent.
Yeah. Let's get to a few questions. And again, thanks again. I know it's like almost bedtime there in Indonesia. And you're on, did you say Sulawesi? What island are you on?
No, south of that. So I'm Lombok.
You're on Lombok.
Yeah.
Oh, I sailed to Lombok. They were that's when I was in that way back in 1979. There was a terrible drought, and there was starvation on Lombok. We stopped there on the way to Bali. It was very sobering. A remarkable island.
It is, and there used to be a lot of theft here, and it kept foreigners away for a long time.
That's interesting.
And you won't believe it if you came here. They built a MotoGP racetrack, so it went in 3 months to like dirt, really bad pothole roads, to these amazing Chinese-built highways, and you see about 8 people on it on your journey into town, because there's no one really on the island.
I'll just show you. This was on an island between Australia and again New Guinea in 1979. We were collecting. No, it was oh gosh, it's too, I haven't had enough coffee. Island right there up above the Cape York Peninsula. Okay. And but there was fishing gear all over the place. So that was the nature of plastic pollution at that time, at least as we saw it.
Wow,
And
not so much packaging.
yeah. So questions have come in here. Someone wants to make sure we maximize the visibility of what you're doing here in the U.S. I don't know whether your supply chains, the consumer end, are they international companies or?
Yeah. I'm actually in America next month on the East Coast. Trying to promote that at the Ocean Plastic Commons in Houston, Texas. But yeah, power brands also come from the States. They're a big part of that, and yeah, we're really trying to find the right people to help us sort of elevate this in the US, because it's of course a massive manufacturing hub as well. So yeah.
Is someone here has summarized a few things you've been saying, David Orion Callahan, micro recycling machines to sustain with neighborhood pickup and recycling incentive, minimal plastic burn. Is there a technology component that can be scaled?
Yeah, that's a great point. Very simply, not so much. These, basic operating machines,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it before, but a small wine shredder in a little village or household, those things are great. And
What kind of shredder? A small
hand
hand
wine
shredder.
which uses no electricity, which is an important thing. Something like that with a little bit more, bit more modern touch to it would work. Even a chain drive system, but it's about getting the parts for that too, and getting it to them. So, and energy is a big thing here. It's not cheap, but we've been looking at solar systems to offer as a package deal for these, to put it on their roof, to be able to have the water pump situation, but then also to have enough energy spare to run a small business from out front. But to answer David's question there, it can work. And Precious Plastics, I don't know if you know much about these guys, really cool. I think they're from the Netherlands, and what they do is they offer a flat pack machine, which is promoting anyone to buy this and take goods from shops and houses in their neighborhood and make coasters and extrude into products, which just means melt it and create it into sort of these products. And really, we're trying to do very similar to that, and we're also looking at hopefully working with those guys in the future, but essentially like that, where anyone can do that, but bringing in technology into a place where Wi-Fi isn't here yet and things like that, it is difficult, and creating infrastructure for that.
You're bringing to mind Harish Hande, who's a successful Indian sort of village scale entrepreneur with a company called Selco, and they do these small scale village sort of assays. And see, this is a solar powered flour mill, so you can have this technology. You can do the integrated approach. So maybe
that's exactly what I'm talking about for a shredder.
Yeah, so maybe having a conversation with Selco. I don't know if they have an Indonesian affiliate.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andy. I would love to see it. Takes up no space. Look at that. And it's a belt system, I guess, which is really nice.
Yep. Then they have. I've seen other kinds of. They kind of do adaptive, sort of solar powered adaptive technologies that work at the village scale, and it could be a grain mill. It can be other kinds of shredders and things. They have sewing machines.
Even hook that up to a bicycle back wheel there. Burn some calories and shred at the same time.
Yeah,
nice.
I'd be happy to convene a gathering.
Please, that would be amazing, because those sort of smaller, affordable units, I've actually been looking for stuff like that, and that hasn't popped up on my radar. So thank you, Andy. That's great.
I will. Okay, it's on my list to do, and make sure to remember to write down to connect me with that young man who's
Putu. Yeah, I will do.
Remember. So let's see. There's some other comments, questions here. Well, do you have a Twitter page and or Facebook?
Yeah, I'm only just getting on Twitter. I'm a little bit between the age brackets where I probably should. But yeah, getting to it. Tom Jacko 88 on Twitter, I believe. Facebook, yeah, we got Facebook, Instagram. We do a lot of collaborations on TikTok, but that's not really my thing. But LinkedIn, yeah, I live on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is. I can see each person has a different approach to these things.
Right.
Don Carley asks a tough question. What are you doing in Indonesia to address the root causes of plastic pollution? To me, you're getting pretty close to the root. Obviously, the root or fundamental would be not to have things we have to throw out. But
these roots go as deep as as you can imagine. There is so many layers to this onion. It is amazing. You've got government, you've got poverty, you've literally every issue that you could have on this earth. You've got like I said, money going missing, people in the government changing every 8 months. I've spoken to the environmental minister, I think six different ones in the space of not very long at all. So the root cause is really, where is that root? Is it the production of manufacturing? Is it waste management? Is it the consumption? We all know that plastic consumption isn't going down, and if you look at the energy levels of creating plastic versus other products, it's low. And I'm not in favor of plastic production at all, but you have to look at both sides of the coin in order to make a accurate opinion of it. But yeah, I mean, look at Coca-Cola with the bottle scheme. It took them 1 liter of clean water to rinse out a bottle, and then another half a liter or 3/4 a liter of water to add into the Coca-Cola. And there was a massive water shortage when I believe it was Africa. They tried, because they were trying to make thicker bottles because of the roads there. But every solution has a problem, and the waste management here, there's so many. So we really try and control it through showing the government the way, and then we say, here's the example, here's the collection, we've shown you how to do it, there's now no excuse, help us scale this, create a budget for it, which is a hard conversation to have, and let us implement it, or let everyone implement it. Like these businesses, once you've got enough PR, like in the modern world of the next generation, finding these people, and we have Indonesian, Thai people, Malaysian, always sending us messages on Instagram saying, hey, I'm collecting material from my village, how do we get it picked up? And this is 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds not getting jobs coming out of high school education, because there aren't many. It's 4.1% unemployment rate here, and 300 million people. It's the biggest island nation in the world. So yeah, you've got this new generation of amazing people that actually want to solve the root. So I think the answer to the question there is, to solve the root, it really has to come from the people, and not wait for infrastructure and wait for all these governments to be on their agenda and to benefit them. If we can get a movement of people, and if many people can join in on this as possible, then that consumer or those individuals, that movement is so powerful. And yeah, again, get enough people in the location, a truck goes there, now it's affordable, now you can move material back to the mainland, now you can create tiny machines in that village, and not only are they feeding themselves and their family, now they've created a network in their region, not even village anymore. Now it's people coming from 5 miles away to drop it off, or a little bit further, and that's what really gets us excited. I'm very lucky. I've got very passionate people in the business who have been through hell over the last few years to get this off the ground. Yeah. So yeah, that is the route for me. That is getting to people, and through social media is a huge part of that. Yeah, TikTok here is huge. So another platform which can really help.
Well, I'd love to see some examples of the Instagram and TikTok flow. Maybe for another meetup, we could focus on the role of social media. It's so interesting to me that you're saying that there's folks in Instagram in Malaysia, Thailand, and elsewhere saying, how can we get stuff picked up. That shows the potential for again for this to spread.
It's the only hope you get out of it from an actual point of interest with no gain, which is really important. People want to help, and then the money making comes from it, allows them to scale it. So if they want to do this off the back to change where they live and have some change on this planet, that is the key driver between people getting in touch. And it's a massive part of the separation between the older generations and the younger ones. And school's a big part of that.
Oh boy, well, there's more to do here for sure. I can see. I don't want to keep you up all night.
Oh no, I love it, but if that's all the time we've got there, Andy, that's fine.
Well, like if I could, I think it's pretty clear, but if I could do another episode here, maybe with someone at the product end, one of the companies, and someone at the village end, that would be really cool.
Yeah, we can do that. I've got a couple of the younger guys who speak pretty good English, and if not, I can bring a translator on.
That's great.
Actually, not far from here, we've got a little network of guys. So and I would actually love to dig out my video of the Red River of Java. Have you seen that?
No.
So, like you were saying earlier, it's really dark, like red sort of blood color, and I think it was like that for 7 days. But it's not uncommon for rivers in Java to change color 3 or 4 times in a day, where people usually wash their clothes. So we've got a little bit of content on that, I think, which is really interesting, and I'll have to get the right credits to the right people, so I need a bit of time on that one. But that is an eye wrencher, that one.
Well, again, it shows you, but I think what you've demonstrated is that maybe there is a bit of leapfrogging that can occur in the Hudson River from the 50s onward. It took basically a lot of economic advancement. Communities became middle class. The river turned from being a dumping place to being a highly coveted waterfront real estate. The whole impression of what a river is for changed. Right. And that's the environmental movement grew out of that. It's not the environmental movement didn't just happen. It was a result of prosperity and changing attitudes and regulation, but the regulations grew out of community interest. The Clean Water Act, the spending on things like sewage plants and stuff came from a growing sense of having to change. So I'm hoping that your work I do think your work is demonstrating this is possible elsewhere, and maybe there's a way to fast track things a little bit. So thanks so much for being on today. I'm going to just pull up your website one more time before we close out.
That's very kind. Thank you.
And this is again honest-ocean.com. And it's interesting again, I was going to ask you about, like, in a perfect world, are you looking for funding from like foundations or from as a business operation, as a business enterprise?
Yeah, we're very careful about where we take funds from. So far, we're self-funded, and it's been very difficult. But we don't answer to a lot of people who potentially have offered us money before. So investment side of it, not too much, but in terms of a sales side of us, that's really how we can scale through people who are interested in having good material, but from a different source. And that's the partnership around products is something that we're really passionate about. We really love collaborating on products and trying to find solutions for applications and creating whatever it is, whether it's hoovers or a whole range of different products, toys, anything like that. It's pretty much every part of our life has plastic in it. So anything that you see that can be made from a different source and it's made from virgin new plastic, is what virgin means, then we can pretty much do it. So we're really looking for people who really want to change the world through on the ground recycling, and that's why I moved here.
That's great. Well, thanks again. This is Tom Jackson. You can find him most easily on LinkedIn. And this is the Sustain What webcast from Columbia Climate School. I'm Andy Revkin, long time, 40 years now in journalism on this beat, and I can't believe. But every day is a learning exercise. And I hope if you're watching, please share this. It's on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you can share the links. And I'll be posting about it on my Substack blog. And we go on every day trying to make the world a little better. And thank you again, Tom Jackson in Lombok, Indonesia, at Honest Ocean for being
Thank you, Andy.
Sustain What.
Thank you a lot, and thanks for spreading the word. Couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much.